All right, everybody, I am back with a brand new movie review. And today I am reviewing none other than the new blockbuster film by Christopher Nolan himself called Oppenheimer. It's opening opposite Barbie this weekend, and I'm really hoping that Oppenheimer actually gets the advantage over Barbie. Now, I have stayed away from any spoilers from this film, and I'm going to keep this story or this review spoiler-free as well. There's so much I would love to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about. This is a movie that needs to be experienced and on a very large screen. Now, the first thing I want to mention going into this is if you go see this film, know that there is not a single shot in this film of CGI. Not one single shot. So everything you see in the film is practical. In fact, Christopher Nolan he built a bomb that they use as the atomic bomb that they detonate in the film. And so he recreated that atomic explosion. Now, this film tells the story of Oppenheimer, who is played by Cillian Murphy. He is surrounded by a massive supporting cast. And my biggest surprise in this film, and I didn't know that this individual was in the movie, but my favorite actor of all time is Gary Oldman. And Gary Oldman is in this film. And kudos to anybody who figures out who that is, because it shocked me and my wife both looked at each other in the theater at the same time, not believing what we were seeing. And the first time I ever knew who Gary Oldman was in the summer of, I think it was 97, when both Fifth Element and Air Force One came out, and I found out he was the villain in both films, and I couldn't believe it. And after that, I found out who Gary Oldman was, and I've been enjoying his work ever since. This guy is a freaking chameleon, and he's no different in this film. We also have Robert Downey Jr. in this film, who plays a very important role in the film. And in fact, this is probably the performance of his career. This film, I'm telling you right now, is off the charts amazing. Now, it is a little long, and it's going to feel long, but it's almost like watching two different films. The first half of the film talks about the life of Oppenheimer, kind of explains and sets things up. They kind of introduce him, they introduce Einstein. There's a setup there at the beginning that there's a massive payoff at the end. And it goes through it jumps through like four different time periods. And they're all moving forward in time, but they're all starting at different points, which is interesting. Christopher Nolan is a master at this. And the first time I ever knew who Christopher Nolan was the summer that Memento came out. My wife and I saw that several times at the theater, and today is one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. Memento is an incredible film, and if you've never seen Memento, I highly recommend it. I think it was his first or second feature film, and it's some pretty awesome stuff, and it shows you what he is capable of. This movie had a big air of that. I mean, it had a very similar feel, and I love how everything is practical in the film. This is something that bugs me a lot as a movie fan. Back in the 80s, we had a lot of practical stuff. They didn't have a whole lot of CGI and that sort of a thing, and they rely on it too heavily today. The last Indiana Jones movie, what was severely missing was that practical feel. They just rely too heavily on CGI where things, like I said, were practical. And I appreciate Christopher Nolan keeping his stuff grounded. He's an amazing director. And this film is no different. So the first half of the film, going back to what I was saying, is the first half of the film is kind of setting up the story, and then you go immediately into the arms race. And then the second half is a freaking political thriller. Like, I had no idea what I was getting into when I went and saw this film. And it is long because of that, but it is well worth the watch. Now, for people who are concerned about certain things, there is quite a bit of nudity in this film. I don't condone nudity in any way, shape, or form. It's not my cup of tea. But the way they did it in this film does serve a massive purpose and does cut to the bone when you realize what the purpose was for doing what they did with the characters that were involved with this. And so there is a purpose behind that. Now, the message of this story is very interesting because I knew going into this that everybody who was involved with creating, the H-bomb, the A-bomb, all the nuclear weapons that leading up to what we have today, that all of those individuals, Einstein, Oppenheimer, and the rest, they all regretted what they did. It actually haunted all of these individuals until, they all passed away. And this film, you definitely see the toll it takes. And Nolan talked about how he actually hired Cillian Murphy because of how he can cut to the bone through his eyes and the way he looks. And you do see the pain that he suffers in this film, leading up to the building of the bomb, to the effects of it afterwards. And there are some pretty cool practical effects afterwards that are pretty neat. So know that the bomb goes off probably about halfway, a little more than halfway through the film, and then the rest of it is a political thriller, which is phenomenal. And it kind of mirrors some of the stuff that's going on. Well, and I think there's a purpose behind this film. I think it is a political message showing kind of the strife we have in the political system today, and it shows that the government is what the government has always been, that they cover stuff up. They blame people for things they shouldn't be blamed for. There's a lot of cover-ups and a lot of other things, and this movie does bring a lot of that stuff to light, and you realize that this stuff has been going on since the beginning of time, basically. And it's very important today, and it's an important message to get out because people are starting to wake up to what you would call, the shadow government or the people in the shadows. And this is kind of what this movie does deal with. Now, I have no idea what Christopher Nolan's political leanings are, but there's no doubt that the government does nefarious things. They do it for their own good, and they will discredit anybody that they don't see as part of the club. And we see that happening in politics today. Now, this is by no means a political review. I'm not leaning one way or another. In fact, I am not registered as a Democrat. I'm not registered as a Republican. I'm pretty much an independent. I am pretty much basically, I don't think either side is working for the people anymore. And it's disheartening. This movie definitely shows the things that are going on behind the scenes. Now, the most intense part of this is, the race to create the bomb. And it's kind of a warning for what's going on today. And we're in the middle of another arms race right now. AI. AI is the new arms race, and it could be even more dire than what the bomb was back when all of this went down. But the music in this film is amazing, and I want to pull this up because I don't think Hans Zimmer did the music in this, surprisingly. I think when it came up that it was somebody else. But the music was intense. It was a lot like what Hans Zimmer would do, but it didn't necessarily feel like Hans Zimmer. So let's take a look here at the music. Let's do music by... Yeah, the music was by Ludwig Göransson. And he does mimic... there's definitely a style that Christopher Nolan likes for his films, and Ludwig Göransson brought that to the film, and he did a great job with it. It definitely gave you this intense feeling. It was powerful in the moments it needed to be powerful. And like I said, actually, James Woods was one of the executive producers on this. That's pretty interesting. Is that the James Woods? Oh, yeah. Wow, it is the James Woods. I had no idea. Yeah, so there's definitely a political message with this film, which was not something I was expecting. And I can't even tell you how many people were in this film. You're going to see so many people that you recognize, and they all have a pretty big role in this film. It's very diverse. It's an extremely diverse cast. And it's something, like I said, I think it needs to be experienced on the big screen. I hope this movie blows up big. At the end of the day, this is now probably my second favorite Nolan film behind. My favorite is Memento. I would probably put this one second. Would I go back and watch this a bazillion times? No, I will own it for my collection, and it's something I'd probably watch once every 5 to 10 years. And it's a pretty crazy film. It is, and it goes to show you what goes on behind the scenes, stuff that the average person doesn't see, and it brings it to light. And the fact that it's a true story makes it even all that much more scary. All right, at the end of the day, out of 5 stars, I give this 5 stars. It's an amazing film. Go see it. You won't be disappointed. All right, there's my spoiler-free review on Oppenheimer. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought. in the comments. I would love to hear it. And if you like the video, please like it, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You will be notified as I have new videos go up. We'll see you on the next review.